Good morning, good afternoon, or evening, everyone. As we're waiting for people to come in, we'll give them a couple more minutes. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of Gold Standard to this SDG Impact Tool and Dashboard training for auditors and validation verification bodies. I hope we have a very interactive session where you get to ask a lot of questions and we'll help you as much as possible. And Anshika and I will take care that that is the case. Anshika will be presenting the bulk of the training material today, as she has been the one mostly involved with the design and development of the digital SDG tool. And me, you probably know already, I'm responsible for oversight and relationship with the VVB community. So I'm very glad to be able to host this webinar for you. Maybe let's just give one more minute, Anshika, until people come in. We have probably double the amount of people registered for this training that we have currently in the room. And then we'll talk about housekeeping. Maybe let's just go to the previous slide. Thank you. Good to see some familiar faces, well, names on the list. And very good to see some unfamiliar faces and names on the list. It is very exciting how the auditor community has been expanding. We have probably 3 times more auditors now than we had 3 years ago when I started. So I'm very glad to welcome you all to this group and to this session, and hope to see you come back more often. All right, we have more than 90 people. I think we can start now. So again, Anshika Gupta, Manager for Standard Development and Innovation, is hugely responsible for the amazing digitization of the SDG tool that you all know from its Excel version. And myself, Marta Georgian, I'm Senior Manager for Oversight, and I work with the VVB community here at Gold Standard. A bit of housekeeping. We're recording this webinar. So if you would like to see it afterwards or share it with colleagues because you found it so useful, then it will be available online afterwards. Please add all your questions in the chat. Throughout the webinar, we'll have Q&A sessions at certain points where we're going to answer these questions. Feel free to vote the questions that your peers post in the chat with thumbs up so that we can prioritize questions according to how many people find them useful. And if we don't manage to answer your question, don't worry, we will get back to everyone with the responses. Now, this workshop consists of, well, this welcome and a little bit of introduction from my side. And then Anshika will take you through an overview of the SDG Impact Tool and how it works, all the workflows in it, what are the benefits of the tool, rollout and support, and how we plan to put it into effect. And the most exciting part, probably the prettiest, is the SDG Impact Dashboard, which I hope all of you have seen by now. If not, I highly recommend that you scroll through it. And then we'll have Q&A session again. Thank you, Anshika. And yeah, just a few words to start us off with on the tool and why we have it in the first place. You know that Gold Standard in general is about making more finance available for those projects that contribute the most to climate change mitigation and to sustainable development in general. We think that this SDG tool is exactly the tool we needed in order to increase that impact that we have. And why do we think so? It's because it will, first of all, enable identification of projects aligning with host country, investor or buyer objectives, because it would make it easier to compare projects. It will make it easier to differentiate a project that changes the life of 30,000 women versus a project that creates 3 jobs. It will do that through introducing standardized indicators and safeguarding assessment questions so that all projects are assessed in the same way. It introduces a dashboard with clear data that allows everyone to compare projects, and will add more and more data at project level as the tool gets used. Currently, the dashboard, of course, uses only registry data, which is very generic, but we hope that you can see the value of this and the value of your work as you audit these projects, and that we generate more data at the project level. What's probably more interesting for you as auditors, this tool will enhance the efficiency of validation and verification by streamlining the monitoring report design, monitoring plan design and validation. And it will streamline the reporting and verification of SDG related indicators and safeguarding principles related indicators. So that is why we've created a tool. Let's take us through the history of the tool. So for those of you who have been here as around Gold Standard for as long as I have or longer, before 2017 or way back, even in 2008, what we had was a GS passport. In versions 1 and 2 of Gold Standard, we had a GS passport where the indicators were set by the project developer, and they were for sustainability assessment based on the Millennium Development Goals. There were no Sustainable Development Goals because they came into force later. And there was do no harm assessment, where the project had to show that it has positive impact, but it also doesn't have negative impact. Afterwards, when the Sustainable Development Goals were agreed globally, we launched the gold standard for the global goals, where we turned the sustainability assessment into a requirement for meeting more than 3 sustainable development goals, with indicators again set by the project developer. And we introduced safeguarding principles assessment instead of the do no harm assessment, where the questions that are relevant to the project were also selected by the project developer. Then in 2022, we moved to the Excel SDG tool, the Excel version, which included standardized indicators, but that not all projects had transitioned to the Excel tool yet, because some of them were design certified based on the previous version, and then standardized indicators were less easy to enforce because the tool was easy to manipulate as an Excel tool is. And in the PDD, then we added the safeguarding principles assessment with standardized questions. And now what we have created is something that helps also the audit and the monitoring and the reporting of all this, which is a digital tool that has the standardized indicators and data capture, machine readable data capture, and the standardized questions for safeguarding principles assessment with data capture. So this is the evolution of the tool, so that you kind of remember where we started and how far we've gotten over the years. Thank you, Nshika. So in order to warm up and to ensure that we have some interactivity in this session, we'd like to launch a little poll. It's nothing scary. We're not going to rate you on your knowledge, but we would just like to understand who's in the room and to what extent people are familiar with the SDG tool for now, and that you can see how you fare compared to your peers. So, oops. So let me launch the poll. Just take a couple of minutes to respond. Right? I have a few responses already. Ashika, maybe I can share my screen right now, or you want to take us through the responses as well?
Yeah, it'll be better if you can share your screen. I'll just stop sharing.
So we have 48 responses. And in terms of familiarity with the tool, we've got most people a little bit familiar and quite a few people quite familiar. That is really great. I hope by the end of this training, everybody is going to be much more well-versed with the tool. Have you already used the digital SDG impact tool for validations? Some of you have. That's about 5 respondents, and currently using quite a few. So that's amazing. Of course, most of you have not used it yet because we've only launched it as a soft launch with a few project developers end of last year. So that is perfectly normal, but it's great to see that some of you are currently using it. Which country has the most gold standard projects? India is the correct answer. That's true. You can see that in the dashboard. That and much more information, such as how many tons of CO2 equivalent have been verified or certified by gold standard projects to date, and that's about 300 million. And that is quite an impressive feat. And I think it's nice to go back and see the impact of our work and the impact of gold standard in general on the world. And that is what the tool is about and what the dashboard helps us with. And the most curious for me is this question. How much shared value has been created by the gold standard community services projects to date? And if you think only about community services projects, it is it is indeed 30 billion US dollars. So most of you said about 3 billion, but in fact, only from cook stoves, water filters, and household biogas projects, we have created shared value of over 30 billion US dollars. And that shared value is expressed in health benefits, in time savings, in of course, emission reductions. And you can see you can click through the values on the dashboard, and you can see the methodology that is used to calculate shared value on our website. But I think that is extremely exciting, how much finance is being channeled to projects through gold standard certification that all of you participate in. And in terms of the word cloud, I'm sorry I cannot make this bigger, but in terms of the word cloud, we have interesting as the most prominent word, innovation, easy to use, nice initiative, interactive, new, amazing, life easy, digital certification, going forward, great effort, useful, transparent, efficiency. That is amazing. So this is how we feel. We'll have the same exercise at the end of the session to see how we feel after the workshop. And thank you very much for participating, and hope that this is going to be very useful for you. Now I'd like to pass back the microphone to Anshika, who will take you through the details of the tool. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha. I'll just share my screen again. So now let's talk about a few details of the digital SDG impact tool. First of all, of course, answering the very basic question, what is the digital SDG impact tool? So it is a comprehensive tool which has been designed to streamline the reporting, quantification, verification, and certification of the sustainable development impacts under gold standard for global goals. It was developed as a part of the digitization efforts for GS4GG, and it is developed with support from Swedish Energy Agency and Thinking Machines Data Science, which is also the developer for this tool. Coming to the GS4GG requirements that the tool caters to. So there are two very important requirements in the gold standard for global goals. One is, of course, the contribution to sustainable development, and the second being the safeguarding principles assessment. So both these requirements are covered in this SDG tool. Apart from this, everything pertaining to emission reduction quantification or any other requirement of the standard, it will function as usual. And this SDG tool will be a part of the entire certification process for all the validation and verification steps. So these requirements have been translated into various functionalities on the tool, which will be dependent on the user group of the user. So this tool caters to all the user groups which are a part of the certification cycle, right from the developer to the VVB to the certification body reviewers. It also has a functionality for the host country representatives to list down their NDCs and the national objectives. Now, talking about the very initial step of the tool, how to access the tool. So all the user groups need to first register on the digital SDG tool, and it can be accessed through the gold standard website. So where the user has to sign up with the email ID and provide details of the user group that the user belongs to. Once that's done and the GS representative receives this application, then the representative will review, do a brief check, and approve or reject the response. And based on this, the user can then log into the SDG tool. Once the user logs into the SDG tool, they'll get a customized user interface. So if it's a project developer, they'll have a different face of the SDG tool. If it's a reviewer, if it's a VVB auditor, they all have different interface on the SDG tool based on the role that they play in the certification cycle. Now, the next question is, where does the tool fit into the entire certification cycle? So certification cycle is pretty long. Where does this role of SDG tool starts? So it starts after the listing of the project. Once it's listed with the details on the GS registry, it becomes available on the digital tool, and all the basic information of the project, such as the GS ID, the crediting period, the project developer's name, everything is fetched from the registry itself. This is a sample screenshot of the VEB interface. So once the VEB auditor logs into the SDG tool, they'll see a similar interface on the tool. It has all the basic information of all the projects which has been sent to them by the project developers. You can see the review status here, the project name, the project ID, the date when the VB received it from the project developer, and of course the appropriate action. This is a sample project page. So if you see, it has all the review sections, and on the right, it shows a summary of the updates that the project developer made. On the left, you see all the review sections wherein you can click and you will see the specific details of the project, such as in this video, you can see the contribution to the sustainable development. All this information would have been put by the project developer and sent to the VEB for review. And on the right-hand side, you see the view findings and add findings, wherein the auditor can just click add findings, select the type of finding that the auditor is raising, and that finding will be attributed to this indicator, monitoring indicator on its own. Now, talking about the tool's workflow, how the information transfers from one user to another on the SDG tool. So it, of course, starts with the developer. So once the project is listed on the registry, it shows in the project developer's interface. Then the project developer can add all the details there, and it can send, and the project developer can send it to the VVPs for their review. Once the VP has reviewed the project, they can either send it as a recommendation to the reviewers, or they can send it back to the developer with findings. And then the project developer, of course, has an option to edit the inputs they had made in the SDG tool and send it back to the VAB auditors. And then they can do a reassessment of the submission made by the developers. Once the project reaches the reviewers again have this option of either sending it as a confirmation to the platform, or they have an option of sending it back to the VB auditors with further comments and requests. The reviewers also would have an option to allocate specific findings to the project developers directly. However, everything will be visible to the VVPs. All the findings, including the ones allocated to the developers, would be visible to the VVP auditor. And once the certification cycle is completed, the reviewer has given his or her approval, then the project developer has to download the final report from the tool and upload it on the certification platform as a final step. Then what are the benefits of the SDG tool for the auditors? It, of course, makes the generation of reports very easy, because then you do not have to create this Word file, which currently is a practice, and everything that happens regarding the safeguarding principles and the sustainable development benefits of the project stays on the tool itself. It also provides a clear and consistent data format, which is easier to review. Just like Martha mentioned earlier, the way the information has to be put in the SDG impact tool is standardized. The monitoring indicators are standardized. The way auditors are reviewing and reporting is extremely standardized. So it makes the entire process very clear and consistent. It also has an automatic calculation which reduces the editorial errors. So the project developer doesn't have to go back and check calculations at 20 different places. It is done at one place in the SDG tool, and which is automatic. So the scope of editorial errors is reduced to very less. And the raising and closing of the findings becomes very easy on the SDG tool. It provides a very easy communication between all the stakeholders, including the reviewers, the auditors, and the project developer. It also provides a real-time insight of the project status, wherein you can see if the project has been reviewed, it has been sent back, and where is the project lying right now, which also enhances the transparency of the entire process. And it also builds the trust of the stakeholders in the entire process because of this enhanced transparency. It then again streamlines the safeguarding assessment, because the process is extremely standardized now on the SDG impact tool, and auditing and reviewing the information will become very easy. It, of course, also reduces the administrative burden on the auditors. Coming to what are the main changes for the auditors after this release of the digital SDG impact tool. So the currently active Excel-based tool will be replaced by this digital tool. And all the communication regarding the SDG impact and the safeguarding assessment will be done on the digital tool itself. Same information, whichever is reported on the SDG tool, the digital tool will not be required to be reported again in the VV reports. And what remains the same? The scope of assessment for the auditors remains the same. The reporting requirements remains the same. Of course, now it is going to take place on the digital tool apart from, instead of the monitoring report or the PDD or the calculation sheets, it is done on the digital tool, but the reporting requirements remains the same, and all the other standard requirements remain the same. There is nothing that is changed in the standard to accommodate this digital tool. Talking about the rollout and support, we understand this is a new tool and the users will take some time to familiarize themselves with the tool and be comfortable. So we have tried to create a lot of resources for the users in terms of FAQs, the demonstration video, user manuals for each user group, and also the webinars. So like mentioned by Martha earlier, this session is also being recorded and it will be made available on the website so that all the users who are present today or who are not present today can just go back to the recording and refer anytime that they want to. And in any case whatsoever, if any user has any issues anytime, they can always write to helpdesk@goldstandard.org and we'll get back as soon as we can. Talking about the entry into force. So if you notice, we have written the proposed entry into force because these dates or this rollout plan is still not finalized because we are seeking extensive feedback from all the stakeholders, including you people present here today. Just like I mentioned, we realize it's a different tool. It's a new thing that we are trying to do. The people are going to take time, and we may also face some hiccups while onboarding the users onto this. So keeping that in mind, we have tried to give as much room as much possible to all the users to onboard on this tool. So for now, what we tentatively propose is that for all the projects which were listed before 1st of September and are submitting their design review before 1st of February next year can continue using the Excel tool. But if they are submitting it after 1st of February 2025, they will have to use the digital tool. And any project listed after 1st of September 2024 has to use the digital tool. But if the project is design certified and they're submitting it for renewal before 1st of February next year, they can continue using the Excel tool, but after 1st of February, they have to use the digital tool. So we have to keep two dates in mind here. So for all the listed projects, important date is 1st of September. And another important date is 1st of February 2025. Based on this, the applicability of the tool will be judged. So you don't have to worry about this information. This will also, of course, come into the rule update that we are going to release after we have the feedback from all the stakeholders. And we will also be including this in a follow-up Q&A document that we'll be sharing with all of you after this webinar. So don't worry about noting down all these dates as yet. The same thing goes for the POAs or the VPAs. For all the POAs which are listed before 1st of September and the VPA is submitting for inclusion before 1st of Feb next year, they can continue using the Excel tool, but after 1st of Feb, they have to use the digital tool. And for all the POAs which are listed after 1st of September, all the VPAs have to use the digital tool. For the design certified POAs, for POA which is design certified before 1st of September and the VPA is making a submission for inclusion or renewal before 1st of Feb or after 1st of Feb, they can use the Excel tool. So any design certified POA which was certified before 1st of Feb, all the VPAs can continue using the Excel tool. But if it is design certified after 1st of September, it has to use the digital tool. And irrespective of anything, any stage that the project or POA or VPA may be in the certification cycle, after 1st August next year, it becomes mandatory for all the projects submitting for any certification step, including verifications. And over here, I would also like to mention that we would highly encourage all the users to onboard this tool as soon as possible so that we can understand the issues or any problems that the users are facing, and we can rectify it as soon as possible. And it will also help us collect as much data as possible that can feed into the dashboard, which will give us a very nice picture of the impact of the gold standard for global goals. And we'll just talk about it in the next slides. Our next step and future plans. So the rollout of SDG impact tool doesn't just stop here. We want to expand it further, and we want to streamline many other processes which are associated with this. But immediately, our first priority is to support the auditors and other entities with the use of SDG impact tool. And then we want to go on with enhancing the tool in terms of expanding its capabilities and integrating additional features. And we also want to include more technologies or monitoring indicators within the impact tool. And for the same purpose, we had also released a request for proposal wherein we can hire a consultant who can do this for us. And we are currently in the process, and within next 2 to 3 weeks, we would have formally contracted a consultant for doing this activity. So you can see this happening in the next 3 to 4 months. We'll see the scope of SDG impact tool expanded a lot. There are various other complementary things that you want to do, like we are going to explore further ways to support host country in tracking of SDG impacts, as well as reporting under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. And we will also complement the SDG impact tool with wider digitization of GS4GG, which will in turn improve the efficiency and simplicity for project developers, VVBs, and all the other users. So, okay, I think that was a lot of information that we just gave you here. So, Martha, let's change the tone a bit. And can you put up a few questions on the screen?
Of course,
that all the participants can answer. Yeah.
We have a few questions, and those are you want me to share my screen? Okay.
Should I? Yeah. You want to share your screen?
So the first question that I have for you is if you could repeat again what is the how the report will end up with the reviewers. So does it need to be downloaded as a PDF and submitted to the reviewers together with the verification report or validation report, or does it go automatically through the tool? Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah. So once the reviewer has also reviewed the project and they have approved it, they'll do this approval on the tool itself. So because we have this requirement of making all the information transparently available on the certification platform, the project developer has to download a report from the SDG tool. So the steps are also explained in the user manual for project developers, wherein they can, with a single click, they can download the PDF report. It will contain all the project information along with all the findings raised and closed for the project. And that report will then go on to the certification platform. The project developer needs to upload it after the approval of the project by the reviewer.
Indeed. Indeed. So everybody has a login to the tool that gives them access to those projects that they need to review, the project developer, the VVB, and the reviewer. And all three have access to all the findings and approve all the findings in the tool. And once everybody's ready, then the project developer downloads the PDF and submits it for upload or uploads it on the certification platform. I hope that makes it clearer. Then another question is, should the timeline, such as raising findings and its closure of the SDG tool, align with the VVB reports, or can it be independent? So I think that goes two ways. So how does that, in terms of workflow, can you close the SDG tool before you close the validation or verification report? And can you do the opposite? Can you close the validation verification report before you've closed the SDG tool? First review of the VVBs. And also, can you close the entire review before you've closed the SDG tool from the reviewer perspective? So how does that fit with the overall design certification and project certification timeline?
So procedurally, there are no requirements for this thing.
Mhm.
So the reviewer, as a practice, whatever seems pragmatic and practical, they can follow that. So there are no standard requirements for this per se.
All right. So let's try and see. And if you have any feedback on how it goes with it, with the process, then let us
Yeah.
know and we'll integrate that. That will be great feedback from users when you actually start using the tool. Then there's another one from Karsh again. Are the SDG indicators fixed for the entire creating period? Yes, they're fixed
Yes.
in the design of the project,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
So
The
if you need
process
to
remains the
change
same.
Mhm,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Please go ahead, Martha.
If you change indicators, then the project developer needs to apply for design change in order to change indicators.
And
Correct?
the tool also has this functionality that
Mm-hmm.
if the developer tries to change a fixed monitoring indicator, which was fixed at the time of the validation, of course, then it all automatically triggers a design change request. It will give a pop-up to the project developer that this is a change you're making, and this kind of change qualifies as a design change. You want to make the submission, and they can select a yes or no, and the VB will receive a submission similarly.
Wow,
They will be able to see that, okay, this is a design change.
that's fantastic. Um, One more question related to that, Anshika. That one's from my side, just for clarification. If we are, if a project developer would like to use the digital version of the tool instead of the Excel version of the tool, do they need to go for design change or can they simply continue
They can,
with
yeah,
using
simply
them?
continue. Yeah, and we really
Okay,
encourage that. Yeah, it will not qualify as a design change.
perfect. So we we would really love to see as many audits as possible on the digital tool already.
Yeah.
Great. And one last question. Is there a single login ID for a VVB or can VVBs have multiple logins?
So there'll be a single login for the VUB, and you can have multiple logins in that. Multiple auditors can log in into a
Users.
single account of the VUB. Yes,
Mhm.
multiple users can log in. Yeah.
That's great. So we have a hierarchy approach where auditors belong to a VVB and the VVB can see all the audits that are going on within the SDG tool, but each auditor could be, there could be different auditors that work within the VVB's
Yes.
account. Perfect.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for that. I think these are all the questions. No, wait, there is another one. For future developments, is it within your plans to digitize the entire process for findings raising? Not only SDG impacts, yes, that is the future plan. And we're trying this out with the SDG requirements. It will take quite some time until we can digitize the entire process because the processes are so different for different project types. The SDGs and safeguarding principles assessments are the same for all projects, but not but the other requirements are quite different. So it would take some time until we digitize everything, but that is the final objective, that we digitize more and more and that we make it less and less needed to fill out Word and Excel documents all the time. So you'll see quite a few changes coming up in the next years from our side. Thank you very much. One last question, Anshika, very quickly. Should the validation or verification report have any reference to the SDG tool? Or is it an annex or simply not mentioned at all in the audit report?
Yeah, so the auditors and also the project developers, what they can do is all the information that is there available on the digital SDG tool, they can just mention that this information is available on the digital tool. They do not have to summarize or report all the information again in their validation and verification report.
Great.
Same goes for the project developers. They can do the same in the PDD and the MR as well.
And in terms of changing the assessment once submitted, yes, if the reviewer raises a finding, then the VVB can change their assessment, correct? But if the reviewer does not raise a finding, is there any provision to change the VVB's assessment once the assessment was submitted?
Yes, once the reviewer sends it back to the VVB can change its assessment, and all the changes made by the auditor will be visible to the reviewer in terms of a summary of the changes to the project. Just like I showed, maybe let me just share my screen very quickly and I can show the interface. This is the project developer's interface, and it is very similar to how the reviewer's interface also functions. So on the right, you see summary of the updates. So over here, any changes that the project developer makes to the initial submission, everything will be visible here. And similarly, it will be visible to the reviewer as well. Whatever changes the VB makes to their submission, it will be visible to the reviewer over here. So they are free to make any kind of changes they want to once it has returned back from the reviewer.
And Naresh, if you could clarify your question, is the tool only for assessment and monitoring? Well, yes. Whether the monitoring plan will continue as before. So do there need to be changes to the monitoring plan in the PDD, as in not add the monitoring indicators for SDGs and safeguards, or do they have to continue being in the PDD?
No, they do not have to be in the PDD. So what the project developer can do for now, if there's a section of the safeguarding principles, they can just mention it is done on the digital tool. Since everything is done on the digital tool, the auditors are reviewing it, then the reviewers are also assessing it. And then in the end, the project developer will also download a report and upload on the certification platform. It kind of closes the loop. So all the information does not need to be reported in any of the in any of the project documentation, including PDD, MR, or validation verification reports. Only a reference to the tool can be given that this is already there on the tool. That's it.
Yeah, amazing. And the same the same for the project design document, the monitoring report, the validation verification reports.
Yeah,
great. And there's just one more question that I can answer. If we plan to develop a project database where all final documents are available to anyone, all final documents are available to anyone on the gold standard registry. I'll pop the link in the chat in a second, and there you can access every gold standard project and all the public documents. But indeed, we're hoping to improve that interface as well in coming months for VVBs as well. Okay, let's proceed. Then we have another poll for you, right? Or shall we take the other poll after no, let's take the other poll now. Let's see, this poll will help us understand how effective our presentation was and to what extent we have been clear in our presentation. So if you could please fill out these questions. This is anonymous. We don't mind what you respond. It's just for us to understand the quality of the training.
So let me just clarify the context of the first question. the timeline for entry into force of the digital SDG impact tool, we are talking about the timeline when all the projects have to use the digital tool and not the conditional applicability. And I think, Martha, is it also a good idea to highlight that this is not a test that we are taking? It's just
Yeah,
to,
it's not a test that we're taking. It's just for
yeah,
us to understand how well we've presented and what might still need some reinforcement.
it's actually test for us and not for the participants, of course.
Okay, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, we have 40 responses. Let's go and check out how well we've done, Anshika. All right. The timeline for entry into force is not set yet. So again, don't worry about the dates for now. What we're looking for is feedback from your side and from project developers to see when we can launch the tool so that it does not disrupt your processes yet. That's why we have proposed a very generous timeline where the tool enters into force completely for all projects by August 2025. But you can understand that the faster the tool gets implemented, the more data we will have on projects and the more useful the tool will be. So please let us know what you think about the timeline, and we'll pop the feedback form in the chat. Laura, if you could help us with that, that would be fantastic. Then who uploads the final report to the certification platform? I think we've done great, as 70% of us have responded that the project developer does. So don't worry about this as an auditor. The final report with all the findings closed and reviewed is downloaded by the project developer and uploaded on the certification platform. Hopefully we could connect the two platforms soon, but for now there's this one step of uploading the documents. Just like right now, the developer uploads also the validation verification report. Is it necessary to add the findings from the SDG2 into the audit report? No, it's not necessary. And most of you responded correctly. All projects currently use the Excel version of the SDG impact tool. Well, not really. There are some projects that were design certified before the entry into force of the Excel version of the tool, and therefore they still have the same monitoring plan as they had before the entry into force of the Excel tool. These should be fewer and fewer projects as projects update their design and through design certification renewal. So you could still see a few projects that do not use any version of the SDG impact tool. And good is the main the main response from the word cloud on how we feel. We have also interesting discrepancy of data, transparency and traceability, good initiative, innovative, user-friendly, good instrument, calculation is easy, people feel motivated, amazing, quality. I'm very curious about discrepancy of the data. That would be very nice to for whoever put that to explain that in the chat if possible. And we'll come back to that. Thank you very much. And now to the fun part. And Shika, would you like to show us a little bit the SDG tool dashboard? Or before that,
Absolutely.
if anybody has any further questions after the poll, if you were confused about the answers, maybe just pop a question in the chat and we'll take it after the dashboard presentation. Thank you. And Shika, back to you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I'm very excited to introduce this SDG Impact dashboard to all of you. First of all, I must mention that this is not a part of the certification cycle. This is not a review process. This is a dashboard which has been developed to showcase the impact of gold standard certified projects and help project developers to promote their projects. It is an open access dashboard using data from SDG Impact Tool and Gold Standard Impact Registry. So for now, since there is not a lot of data in the SDG Impact Tool, all the information that you see on the dashboard, all the statistics and the data that you see is coming only from the registry. The visualizations on the dashboard include emission reductions, SDG impact, shared value creation, and it can all be filtered by location, project type, and also the project developers. So the idea behind this, making this a part of today's webinar is, auditors do not have to, of course, validate or verify this, but then it's to bring the auditors, you know, um, make them a part of this entire context of, what is the impact of gold standard, so that the auditors can also help the project developers understand what the impact of their project is, how they can, visualize this, then they can promote their projects out to the buyers and investors and financiers. How can, this information also help the project developers in navigating more finance to their projects? So this is the entire purpose of this impact dashboard. This is a little snapshot of the dashboard. So if you see, this is the first page wherein you see three tabs on the top: impact overview, impact analysis, and the find projects tab. So you see, this dashboard has a lot of information from various parameters, which is a part of any project design or reporting, including which monitoring indicator they are catering to, how much impact do they have. So any investor, buyer, any interested or relevant stakeholder, if they want to have this information, they can just go to this dashboard, put various filters based on technology, based on the certification uh, cycle they are a part of, based on the project category, the location. It has various heat maps that tells the relevant user of the impact of a certain project. And they can also go and find a project which aligns with the SDG impact they are looking at. So this will turn out to be an added advantage for the project developers, where they can help and advertise their projects to show the kind of impact they are making. And we are also working on creating project specific dashboards, which can be made at the project developers level or at the projects level as well, which will become a part of the project page on the registry itself, which will visually show the entire impact of the project, which will help the developers further navigate more finance to their projects. So this is a glimpse of the dashboard and the SDG impact tool. We are very thankful to all of you for being part of this webinar for the entire duration. If you have any questions, you can please put it in chat and we'll be more than happy to answer them. Martha, do we have any questions in the chat yet?
We have one question on the applicability. Would the new SDG dashboard only be required for projects that are validated after its launch? Maybe you could clarify that this is not required and this is automatic. All projects are automatically added here.
Yeah, so maybe let me also go to this.
This is for the dashboard, just not the assessment, but the dashboard itself.
I'm sorry, Martha, I don't understand the question. Can you please say that again?
So will the projects be added to the dashboard only after being validated? Only after design certification?
No, that's not true. I'll maybe if I can show you on this. This has the dashboard takes all the information, including, see if you see over here, total certified projects, total VERs, validated, verified. So it has all the information. It contains also the listed projects, the certified projects. It can be filtered based on the project status.
Perfect. Thank you. You hear? I hope this
If
answers
yeah,
your question.
over here, if you can see the total projects, it includes all the projects. And
Yeah,
over here, you see total certified projects. So the
yeah,
dashboard has all the information.
perfect. Thank you very much, Anshika, for this presentation. We have a few more minutes, so if anyone has any further questions, please let us know. If not, I would like to thank very much Anshika for this presentation, but most of all for developing this tool together with the rest of the Gold Standard team. This has been highly anticipated by us, and to see it out in the open is very, very exciting. We really, really hope that this will help you in your work, in your assessment, and that you will feel more connected to Gold Standard and to the mission and the vision of Gold Standard of bringing more finance to the right kinds of projects. Um, and we invite you to use the tool as soon as possible and to let us know about any feedback you have so that we can continue improving it and continue digitizing the certification process. There is a link in the chat where you could provide such feedback, and you can always, always write to help@goldstandard.org. We don't have many people on the help desk, but we endeavor to answer as soon as we can. We'll also develop frequently asked questions. We'll include the questions that you have asked here so that these answers are available to everyone and you can refer to them all the time. And once again, thank you very much for participating, for the great questions, and looking forward to your feedback and to you using the tool and seeing all the data reflected on the dashboard.